welcome to Weekdays Live. This is CJ Holmes, founder of Homeowners for Justice and your host for today's show. We're going to have a lot of updates and news. Again, this is just such an active news cycle. I'm really excited because we've got more links today from MSM, mainstream media, about foreclosure fraud up close and personal. I believe this is a lever that we need to start pushing. So I've got a new action idea that I'm going to share today, a couple of new things I'm going to do that I'm hoping will help build this pressure and momentum. So today we need to run through the list of things that really affect foreclosures. Plus, we've got some other sort of different and yet integrated things we need to talk about. So we're going to talk about the CFPB and about what being named for the FHFA and some of the issues they're going to run into. Again, just real quickly, what hedge funds are like as landlords, because that is coming. That's going to affect a lot of people. And the more people that understand they're going to be affected by this, the better, because these are other ways we can connect with people to help them understand that all of this is due to the foreclosure crisis and it's all due to fraud. And then, of course, we're going to have to talk about what the government is trying to do in response. And I believe it's too little too late, and I think it's the wrong action. But nevertheless, that's what they're doing. So let's keep up to date with that. And then we're going to talk about something that's happening right now, and that is they're having a UFO conference. They're having hearings, public hearings. And so I've gotten some really interesting links from some of the followers, and I want to share that with you, because the more we open our minds to the more things that perhaps we've been lied to about, the better. We need to really get a good grip on what really has been covered up. And I'm telling you, I'm not necessarily a conspiracy theorist. I never called myself that. I would have called myself middle class. But the fact of the matter is, when you look such fraud in the face and you see the government aiding, abetting, starting, and enabling it, you just think, well, what else are they willing and able to do? It brings everything into question to thinking people. And then we're going to be joined with a couple of guests today. They're going to talk about how many judges have MERS on their loans. I wonder if they are happy with that. And also, I really feel we need to start focusing on police reports. So I've asked Linda to talk to us a little bit about that and what we should say. In other words, the question is, if I was going to go in and file a police report on my documents, what would I say? How would I even start that? What kind of response would I get? And I already know from things that others have shared with us that police reports can be a tough cookie. So we'll talk about that, and also some new action plans that we can do together that hopefully will continue to push this leverage that we've got right now, which I believe we do, because mainstream media is reporting it now, finally. So quickly, let's jump to the CFPB. They have new user-friendly compliance guides, and this is just a little article about it. The key with this link is that down here near the bottom, you're going to find the guide, the valuations rule, the appraisal rule. So I highly recommend that we review those and see exactly how the CFPB is going to protect the homeowners and protect us from predator lenders. That is the point. Let's see if these things do it. Help me out. Okay, Mr. Watt, who's been nominated to the FHFA board, well, the director. He wants to be the director. Obama's named him. He has to be confirmed. And it talks here about the fact of the matter is that when it was being voted on in May 2007, there was an amendment that weakened the regulator, FHFA, and what they did was changed how the regulators had to look at the GSEs, Fannie and Freddie. Were they going to harm risk to the financial system, or did the FHFA only had to consider if the portfolios caused risk to Fannie and Freddie? And of course, the amendment passed the House on a huge vote. So pay attention here, and maybe other researchers can tell me exactly who's voted against it, because you've got 36, 3 Democrats and 33 Republicans voted against it. So let's find those 36 people, those representatives are voting for the people. They did not want to weaken the regulations, but notice that, of course, Watt, who was in the House at the time, voted for it to weaken FHFA. So now he's going to be the director, trying to bring in strength. You see the point? This is the point. It is just such a revolving door. Why couldn't they have appointed somebody that had voted against this? That would make better sense, don't you think? Anyway, here we go. Okay, let's see if I can get this. There we go. Here's the next article. Obama's pick for housing agency faces big headaches, and the headaches that they're talking about is not just trying to get past the senators and House representatives that don't want him, but here's one of the big issue is the problem of how many loans in this country are actually owned by these GSEs or backed, insured by them. And so I wanted to just point out, because I've talked about this before, but here's the article. In 2006, only 30% of the mortgages in this entire country were backed by the government. But then again, I object to how they worded this. As the housing sector cratered, private capital fled the market. I wouldn't have said that. I would have said, when private capital discovered that these GSEs and these banksters lied to them and sold them rotten loans, and they refused to invest in any more, that's why they fled the market, because they had been cheated, then of course government role expanded, stepped in, and so now in 2012 more than 86% of new mortgages have government backing. So you have private sector banks cheating. The investors go, whoa, I'm not going to touch that. And so then government goes in and steps in and does it, which makes a bigger taxpayer bailout problem, bigger issues. It is a dilemma. It is a dilemma, especially since we're not holding anybody responsible, really. And I mean criminal charges. Then we'd know they'd stop. If they'd filed criminal charges from the beginning, we wouldn't be having so much of this continued fraud. You kidding me? But because they were allowed to be just civilly charged, never admitting guilt, make the company pay it off, the CEO keeps the bucks, it's going to continue and grow and mushroom, and that's what we've experienced. And so they're talking here about, right now, taxpayer bailouts to date is $187 billion for Fannie and Freddie, and we're getting $16 billion in dividends as they're sort of returning to profitability. But when are they going to actually be free of obligations? How are they going to be managed? We just talked yesterday about how private hedge funds want to take, again, all the profits and leave all the risks stuck on you and me. So it's a huge turmoil, tons of money going into lobbying on that one. Now, let's jump to the next topic, hedge funds as landlords. Great. Here we go.
As home prices continue to rise, all those hedge funds buying foreclosures are being forced to shift strategy to make more money. Diana Olick talked to 2 of those big fund managers and is here to tell us some of their secrets. Hi, Diana.
Hey, Carl, you're right. You would think some of these investors might be looking to cash out, but their ranks are only growing, and so are their portfolios. California-based 510 Capital just inked a $100 million deal with Deutsche Bank to buy single-family rental homes. So we asked the CEO of 510 if he thought maybe he hadn't missed some of the bigger bargains.
We're just at the beginning of institutional sponsorship. We're just at the beginning of public markets for REITs. I think that you're going to have 5 to 10 companies come out of this managing $5 to $10 billion worth of homes.
Now, we spoke to several other large-scale investors whom we've profiled over the last several years to find out how they're shifting strategies in order to find more yield. Justin Chang of Colony Capital out in California, which owns 10,000 homes, says they're buying less in the West and Southwest and focusing on Georgia, Texas, and Florida, where there are more foreclosures. Aaron Edelheit of Atlanta-based The New American Home says the future will be in consolidation as large-scale investors start buying homes from mom and pop landlords. Meanwhile, others are shifting away from homes altogether, claiming prices are too, quote, frothy.
We've been very, very active in the non-performing loan market. We've probably bought more of those loans over the last 2 years than anybody else has. We'll look at other trades that don't have the same kind of high volume competition that artificially drives up some of those prices.
And one more really interesting strategy we've heard, some investors are looking to new construction, some of it distressed new homes, but they're actually going to the builders, and that could benefit both the investors and the home building sector. If you want to read more of this, we've got plenty more from all these investors online, realtycheck.cnbc.com. Carl?
Great. Ain't it great? They're just at the beginning of this institutional purchases, and REIT is a real estate investment trust. He said that very quickly. I just wanted to mention that in case you didn't understand what he was meaning. They're building portfolios, and there's a point to it. So here's an article on Blackstone's housing bet. They've got $4.5 billion. But you know what the point is. You know the point? They want to IPO it. Of course they do. They want to sell it off in the market, and then they don't have any of the risk. They get all the profit, and it doesn't. And anybody that's going to buy that security, they'll be taking the risk. So pretty fascinating, isn't it? Of course, stands to reason. It's natural and logical in a market that is so lopsided like this. Cash can go in. People, remember all the people that lost their homes, they can't get a loan. So they're stuck as renters. They can't borrow to buy. So they can't even compete. The only ones these are competing against are basically first-time borrowers, first-time home buyers. And then I did want to talk about the changes in median housing costs and income. Notice this is renters and owners. This tells us how rents have gone up. 3 years, 2008, 2011, the increase is burdening renters. And then I wanted you to take a quick look at this map. You can review this article yourself. Of course, the link will be there. But there are 10 states where at least 1 in 4 working households is severely cost burdened with housing cost. That's what they're talking about. And so the 10 states that have higher than 1 in 4, higher than 25% of the people are cost burdened. So you take California, 34%, Florida, 32%. That's 32% of the people in that state are struggling with higher costs of housing. This is not a good sign. When you've got 10 states like that, and then 20% to less than 25%. So look at all of these other sort of yellow-green states. You've got a significant amount of the country struggling with housing payments. How do you think the economy is going to rebound? This is sort of the point of what I'm making. So anyway, next, and here is one of the highlights of today's show, and that is banks are still stealing homes, and it's being written about and talked about in mainstream media. So that's the good bad thing. It's good that we're getting some coverage. It's bad it's still going on. And turns out this much hyped settlement still allows banks to steal homes. And it says new data reveals mega banks are still illegally foreclosing. They're talking about illegally foreclosing. But the housing settlement allows it. Aha! Just a moment. Sorry, my conference line sort of failed. Anyway, let's talk about this. This is how banks are allowed to steal the homes, and this is an absolutely well-written and outrageous article, because he's talking about the fact is that new evidence reveals the nation's largest banks have apparently continued to fabricate documents, rip off customers, illegally kick people out of the homes, even after inking a series of settlements over the same abuses. And the worst part is that the main settlement over foreclosure fraud was so weakly written it actually allows criminal conduct to occur, at least up to a certain threshold. You read through the article, it's 5%. So potentially hundreds of thousands of homes could be effectively stolen by the big banks without any sanctions. There you go. And so he's talking about the national mortgage settlement. That's the $25 billion settlement agreement. And they agreed to a broad set of servicing standards for the time period of the settlement. But most of that's been focused on principal reductions. And they're saying, they're repeating, we saw this in the video from NBC, I believe it was last week. They had some episodes, and the links are back there. A mechanical engineer, in a last-ditch bid to save his house, delivered a cashier's check for almost $28,000 to B of A, which lost the payment, foreclosed anyway. In another case, B of A transferred a property to a separate entity that was already closed down and switched the dates on the docs to make it look right. And so just simple, if you will, reporters have been able to uncover this fraud, and yet we can't get our government to do anything about it. And when I say government, I mean the district attorney, the attorney generals, and the Department of Justice in the United States. Not one of them is filing any criminal charges, to my knowledge. You have the recorders filing lawsuits. You have the people filing lawsuits. My email is just stuffed with how banks are cheating the people in their lawsuits. People are screaming and hollering, and we get no justice. This is truly, I'm afraid to say it out loud, but I believe that and this is why I emphasized so much yesterday, if we don't get criminal charges filed in this, then we risk the breakdown of our judicial system. Because why should anybody get charged if the banks get away with it? If they're not stopped criminally, I believe we really run the risk of losing one of the mainstays of, at least perceived, justice in this country. And now maybe maybe we lost it a long time ago and I'm just catching on, but this is something definitely worth fighting for, and that is something that every last individual in this country, including the babies, should be worried about, because they're the future and they're going to have everything they've got stolen. It already is. We need to stop that. So nevertheless, here's the hitch I wanted to quickly read. As a writer first pointed out last year, for all these different servicing standards, the banks have a threshold error rate. Give me a break. A threshold error rate that allows them to violate their obligations up to and including illegally taking someone's home a certain amount of times. I don't understand how that could be in writing, how that could be allowed. For the vast majority of standards, the threshold error rate is 5%. For a few, it's as high as 10%. I can steal 10% of these properties without any sanctions. That means that banks could violate these standards, which often lead to illegal foreclosures, as we well know, on 1 out of every 20 mortgages they service, and the settlement monitor has no ability to do anything about it. For context, RealtyTrack estimated 1.8 million foreclosure filings just in 2012. Under the National Mortgage Settlement, that would be 90,000 of those could be taken illegally for free and get away with it. So, and of course, it gets worse, because now as you read down, this is based on reportable errors in a given reporting period, and the whole thing is just a joke. The whole thing is a really sad joke that on the people. It's a nasty theft joke on you and me. And I'm outraged about it. Now, Congress is doing something, but what they're doing is, instead of firing everybody in the agency, reneging on, tossing out all of those settlements and saying you can't issue one more forged document or you'll go to prison. Now that's what Congress should do. What they're doing is H.R. 1706, the Mortgage Settlement Monitoring Act, crafted by Cummings, ranking member of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, and what they want is another monitor. Wee, 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 wee. Does this sound like the same tune, second verse? Give me a break. Mortgage servicers now admit they broke the law. Then why don't the people get their homes back, is my response. By illegally foreclosing and committing numerous other abuses, but regulators refused to provide even the most basic information about the extent of abuses that were uncovered. So since federal regulators now plan on relying on the banks to determine payouts and deliver settlement funds, gee, you did the criminal thing, so you decide your settlement. You decide what it's going to cost you. That's what they're doing. So now they need an independent monitor to bring transparency and accountability to this. Are you kidding me? They're going to have another monitor. I'm sorry, guys. I'm afraid that we're just really, really cheated here. So here's the H.R. 1706 Mortgage Settlement Monitoring Act. I'm sorry that this is such an update for this Friday. This is probably one of the least effective things they could possibly do, to be real blunt about it. So we've got to do something more. Now, that's the bad side. Here's some of the good side. We've got some mainstream media, and you're going to have these links now that you can start sharing to the public. Let's listen to what AP says.
We couldn't sleep. The kids were upset. We had to make plans on what are we going to do?
Last year, Ileana Russell and her family got this foreclosure eviction. It demanded they leave their house, and it left Ileana confused.
What are we going to do if in the morning we're locked out? Do we pack up the truck? Do we pack up, clothes, and for how long? And
Ileana and her husband had never missed a mortgage payment and thought it was a mistake.
They said, no, you need to get out. So our first thing, of course, was we knew we had title insurance. So we called the title attorney.
The Russells' attorney discovered a mistake. The bank pursuing the foreclosure, HSBC, had no standing to file the lawsuit. The Russells say the lawyer representing the bank should have known that if she had done any kind of research.
They switched our water off. They switched our electricity off. They put our house for sale on all these internet things. So we had people coming over looking at our house and looking in our backyard.
And the Russells aren't alone. More than 2 years ago, some Florida law firms were accused of filing fraudulent documents, faking some signatures and signing hundreds of documents at one time. A practice that became known as robo-signing. Many homeowners say they were fraudulently foreclosed on and lost their homes. The firms were acting on behalf of the banks. The revelations led to a temporary halt in foreclosures around the nation. But complaints like the Russells and other Florida homeowners may signal the practices have not stopped.
What we see are courts and federal government and state government rolling over for the banks, letting them get away with the most egregious crimes.
The Associated Press obtained documents that show the Florida Attorney General's office received more than 200 foreclosure-related complaints from homeowners about attorneys from mid-2011 to the end of last year. But critics say few of those cases in Florida have resulted in any action taken against attorneys, with only 2 cases resulting in disciplinary action.
We referred each one of those investigations over to the Florida Bar for appropriate handling of those cases, as they have authority over attorneys.
The Florida Bar has closed almost 2/3 of the 333 complaints it has received against lawyers representing lenders since late 2010. The Sunshine State had the country's highest foreclosure rate last year. Nicole Grether, The Associated Press.
Well, that's a good article, and we need to share that with people, with all of the people that we know. People need to understand that this is a fraud game. This really is. And if we don't get justice, against the banks, against the lying attorneys, against the lying attorneys in the foreclosure mills, we're not going to have the justice system we thought we had. Here's another, this is I believe NBC News. Yes.
We're back now at 7:44 with a massive mortgage abuse settlement involving big banks. More homeowners caught in that foreclosure crisis will open their checks today, and some of them will be sorely disappointed. NBC's senior investigative correspondent Lisa Myers has the details on this. Lisa, good morning to you.
Good morning, Matt. For families who endured years of anguish or lost their homes, critics say these payments are cold comfort. The banks don't have to admit wrongdoing, and even if there's evidence of illegal conduct, the government so far is not providing that information to homeowners. Karen Pooley's been fighting to save her home from foreclosure for 3 years and recently received her compensation payment from the settlement, $300.
It was more than pathetic. It was insulting.
Timothy Platt, a trucker, says he's been fighting to save his home since his servicer made a mistake, declaring his family behind on the mortgage when they were not. Platt received a postcard recently saying he'll be getting a check. He too expects $300.
It's kind of like a slap in the face. You know, we've been trying to work through this for 3 years now, and we've lost lots.
In all, 13 banks will pay $3.6 billion to homeowners under the settlement. The 5 biggest banks alone earned more than $60 billion last year. The largest payouts, $125,000, go to more than 1,000 members of the military wrongly foreclosed on, and to 53 homeowners foreclosed on even though they never missed a mortgage payment. But most, almost 2 million homeowners, get checks of $300 to $600.
Families get pennies on the dollar in this settlement for having been the victims of illegal activities or mistakes in the bank's activities.
Platt was so upset, he wrote NBC News.
The banks have misrepresented the facts.
In the settlement, the banks promised to end abuses, but Platt says his bank has not changed.
There has been no improvement whatsoever. In fact, you can't even talk to them.
Both Pooley and Platt's banks declined to comment, and Platt now is suing his bank. As for information about wrongdoing by the banks, so far federal regulators are refusing even to provide that material to Congress, claiming the bank's documents are trade secrets, Matt.
All right, Lisa Myers in Washington this morning. Lisa, thank you for that story.
I love it. I love it. Our lying documents are trade secrets.
Can gravity be used?
You can't hear that.
Gravity?
And this is just truly outrageous. And here's another warning from Florida. I got this link from a contact, and this is called Police State. South Floridians encouraged to report on neighbors who hate their government. So it might be wise to watch out what you say to whom. Because here in Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw's $1 million hotline characterizes dissent as extremist threat. A new $1 million program aimed at violence prevention is encouraging Floridians to report their neighbors for making hateful comments about the government. Here we go. This is just another warning and another update and another watch out. This is truly turning into a police state. It's amazing. I start to feel like we're under the heel of a boot of tyranny. I really do. Now, so next, we're going to talk about what is going on today. It's the final day today of the citizen hearing on ET. This is on UFOs. And evidently, this has been some time in coming. And I'm going to do some real quick overview of what we've got, some links that people have sent, and what is being said. And one of the main reasons that people are attracted and interested, including myself, and that is, if there was some way, if this is really true, and we have these visitors, and they have been coming to the world for a long time, it answers a lot of questions, and they obviously have some other kind of energy source that would be wonderful to capitalize on. So that is one of my main foci is, if we could get free energy, you know, the Thrive talked about that in their little movie. This these links and this website, these people, they're talking about it. But what I don't understand is that they're claiming that the government already has fabulous devices. So if they do, then why can't we get them? So those are just some questions in my mind. This is about the citizens' hearing on UFOs, and I've highlighted, they've got 4 senators overseeing the hearings. Darlene Hooley, Democrat, Oregon; Carolyn Kilpatrick, Democrat, Michigan; Lynn Woolsey, Democrat, California; Merrill Cook, Republican, Utah; and former Senator Mike Gravel, Democrat, Arkansas, are on the panel. So this is happening right now. It was from April 29 to May 3. Here's another article about the former politicians preside over the ET hearings. And of course, they're getting paid 20 grand a piece. I'm not real sure exactly who is paying. But what is really interesting is that they're actually listening to testimony, hearing testimony by folks hoping to prove that aliens try to contact and our government tries to keep it secret. I doubt it not. That the government's trying to cover it up. I'm quite sure about that. There are some other little links I'd like to share that I've been able to find. Here is the controversial UFO Sirius documentary. It's supposed to be released in theaters April 24. I have not seen it, but now you'll have the link, and perhaps you can check to see if it's in a theater near you. Here is, on that same SiriusDisclosure.com website, this is a list of all the countries releasing UFO information. I've not had a chance to read everything, but you can read down and let's see what is being released and what we can find and what we can discover, and let's figure out free energy. The claims are being made. This is Stephen Greer. This X conference was done in 2009, I believe. Just published, though, last week on April 16, 2013. I just wanted to play a couple of minutes of that. And then we're going to we're going to shift a conversation and start talking about judges that have MERS on their loans and police reports. So let's give a quick listen to this.
On May 9th, 2001, Dr. Greer presided over a press conference at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. Over 20 military, government, intelligence, and corporate witnesses presented compelling testimony regarding the existence of extraterrestrial life forms visiting the planet and the reverse engineering of the energy and propulsion systems of these crafts. Over 1 billion people heard of this press conference through the webcast and subsequent media coverage, including BBC, CNN, CNN Worldwide, Voice of America, Pravda, Chinese, and Latin American media. The webcast had 250,000 people waiting online. Dr. Greer has met with and provided briefings for senior members of government, military, and intelligence operations in the United States and around the world, including senior CIA officials, Joint Chiefs of Staff, White House staff, senior members of Congress and congressional committees, senior United Nations leadership and diplomats, and senior military officials in the United Kingdom and in Europe. For 20 years, Dr. Greer has been a leader in the process of disclosure. Please welcome Dr. Stephen Greer to X Conference 2007.
You know, a lot of conversation has happened, I'm sure, at this conference about, are we alone in the universe? Why are they here? What are we to do about it? What are we to make of all this? And before I came in here, I was talking to a gentleman from Mexico, and I said, you know, there's a wonderful saying, the world is as you are. And the reality is that the world has to become what our higher vision within us can perceive. We manifest this world. Our civilization and everything in it is a result of our individual and collective consciousness, thought, and action. And once we understand that and move in the direction of that good future, which awaits humanity, we will have an entirely new civilization on Earth. The reason it hasn't happened is that Sure, there's a cabal of people who enjoy all the geopolitical power that goes with a centralized economic, energy, transportation system. And it's this permanent government that when I was doing a press conference with Paul Hellyer, he was talking about that, there are two governments here. There's the government we elect and appoint, which usually, hate to say it, couldn't find their ass in a well-lighted room with both hands, with a few notable exceptions. And then there's this permanent government. And that permanent government or bureaucracy, at the top, there are 200 or 300 people on a committee, and I've met with some of them, who basically enjoy being masters of the universe, or so they think. But as I said once to the head of Army Intelligence, you guys make your plan, but there's another plan. And there's a plan that's going to trump this plan of secrecy, domination, disinformation, fear-mongering, and warmongering. And it's coming, so get ready, because it's going to happen. And to which he said, you may be right. In the meanwhile, we're running this show. The whole idea here is that there are folks who want to control the earth and the earth's people. And essentially, we're their vassals, and they like to be their masters. There's a thing called the school. Literally, that's all it's called, that they are sent to, so that they can learn to attain an adequate level of megalomania. to step into that role. And they are groomed along. It has nothing to do with whether someone is the President of the United States or not. Some have known, some have not. Some have known a little, some have been told nothing. Most, if they know anything, have found out what they have been told to manipulate them into certain actions. I recently received from the Ministry of Defense of a foreign government in Europe a document. And in this document, it explains how Eisenhower had a meeting in 1954 with extraterrestrial people, and that he wanted to disclose their presence and bring out this information and technologies. Within 6 months of that, if you go back and look through all the aerospace journals, all references to anti-gravity, these high-end electromagnetic systems disappear from open source literature. Not a coincidence. What Eisenhower warned us about, the military-industrial complex, overtook and trumped his power. And it was during his watch that we lost control of this issue, sadly, to this day.
All right, that'll get you started, and you can continue to look at the rest of that video for yourself. The fact is, it's pretty fascinating. It goes on for an hour. He acts like he really knows what he's talking about, has some pretty interesting things. I've read some other objections online, so I'm not real sure. How would I know? But it's worth pursuing, particularly if we can shift this paradigm. Just think about what energy would actually do if we had free energy. It would break the energy cartel that we've got right now. They would suddenly not be able to sell any of this oil and gas. We would have our own. We would be able to literally walk away from those kinds of control monopolies. So it's really, really fascinating. It's really worth pursuing, but we need to move on. And so today I've asked Gene. Gene, can you hear us today?
Yes, I can.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I'm never quite sure exactly if my little conference call line is going to set up for the people that I've asked to join us to share. So I'm always real excited if and when it works. So, Gene, tell us a little bit about what you've been focused on for MERS loans and judges. And I've got your links here. I'll put them up on the screen in just a minute.
Well, CJ, as being on the show before, and talking about this Ponzi scheme that the banks are creating and the government is creating against us, I've been fighting this situation since October of 2007. And I filed a lawsuit April the 14th of 2009 And I've had 6 judges. I've hired 2 attorneys that I taught them everything there is to know at the time about this Ponzi scheme. And so the first day I was in court, I was doing pro se, and I told the judge, Your Honor, these are the documents that I have here, and I liken my case to the old Abbott and Costello bit they used to do on the radio years ago called Who's on First? And he started laughing. He said, yes, Mr. Johnson, your case is very complicated. Anyway, so the thing is, then a week or so later, I said, well, I wonder if this judge that's before me has MERS on his mortgage. So I went down to the courthouse and verified that he had 2 mortgages and he had both of MERS. And I said, well, wait a minute. If he's got MERS and all the banks are the shareholders of MERS, it seems to me that he should have a conflict of interest because we both have MERS on our mortgage. So I thought, well, he should recuse himself. Well, I tried to get attorneys to give me a qualified answer to that, and I never could. So in the meantime, I said, well, let me check the other judges in Fresno County. And so I was able to download the whole list back in 2010 of every judge in the state of California in the civil courts.
I've got that list up on the screen right now.
Right. So then I just went through the list for Fresno County, my county, and I found out that 65% of them had MERS on their mortgages. Out of 41 judges, 27 of them had MERS. And the thing is, they don't even know that they have it. So I went to an attorney that I knew that I've known for about 12 years, that I had worked with on another project that I was working on. And he had filed a lawsuit against the government for the Millerton Lake Flyant Dam. They have irrigation canals going east and north and south out of the Flyant Dam here in Fresno. And it flooded a pistachio orchard. And the people that own the orchard says, well, we want to sue the government. And Tim says, well, you can't sue the government. They are, And they said, well, we want to. So anyway, he did, and it went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and he won. Okay, so that's the kind of attorney that I went to. So I went to him 2 or 3 years ago, and I presented him my case, and he said, Gene, you don't have enough money. He says, you just don't have enough money to fight him. So 2 years later, I decided, well, I want to check to make sure his mortgage doesn't have MERS on it. And sure enough, his MERS mortgage, then he had an assignment with robo-signers, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
And I took about 6 documents off the internet of the same signatures that were on his assignment to verify that, the fraud.
Right.
Also, I found out that he has a new partner, a retired federal judge out of Fresno. And I did the same thing in his documents and found the same thing. So I took him to Tim, and before I even talked about my case, I said, Tim, I want you to look at these documents. And he says, he goes through them, I said, well, there's 5 assignments, and then the last one at the bottom was his. And I said, he looked at them, and he saw all the signatures were different, and the bottom one was his, and I said, now read and find out who that belongs to. And he looked at it, and he sat back in his chair. He says, Gene, where did you get this? Well, I said, it's public record.
Exactly. I got it in recorder's office. What do you think?
Hey, and I did it for the other, for the federal judge also, and he says, Gene, we're not interested. I said, what? He says, we're not interested because we represent the title companies and we represent the banks, and we make a lot of money from them. We're not interested. And I said, Jesus Christ, that how when you show them the fraud and it's undeniable, and they still, and the same thing that the judge that dismissed my case last year, same thing. He has a problem with his mortgage and robo-signers on his assignment.
Right.
And I haven't presented that to him as of yet. But again, being a novice, I don't know the rules and regulations of the courts and all that stuff, because the average person doesn't either, and they can't find an attorney that will represent it because they're already bought off by the banks, I feel. I mean, that's the way I look at it. So that's what I feel that now what DJ, you have done with this website is to show the masses of how we've been defrauded of our property and our rights and everything else, and there is no justice anymore. And like you say, it's got to stop. And the only way we can do it is grassroots and force the issue, revolution, whatever.
Well, this is very troubling, Gene, because what you're just confirming again why the battle has been so hard, and that is they've bought everybody off.
Oh, exactly.
They've bought off the court system, the judges. I'm afraid they've bought off the prosecutors. I mean, just today, I'm showing articles where they detail how much, if you will, fraud and illegal theft the servicers can get away with the monitor of the settlement being unable to do anything about it. And of course, you and I say one theft. If you did one, if I did one, we'd be in prison. One theft. But they can do 5 or 10%. And of course, we know that they're doing lots more than that. But the fact is, just having one monitor over hundreds of thousands or millions of loans, give me a break. The whole thing is just geared, it's structured to be ineffective. And I believe that's what HR 1706 is doing. We talked about that, so now Congress, because the people are going, what? So the Congress is saying, oh, well, let's pass another law. And so what do? They give another ineffective solution. We'll have another monitor. Oh, yeah, that's going to help. Look at the last monitor. Look at the last settlement.
Yeah.
No, nobody wants justice. The people want justice. I mean, it reminds me, I can't remember now where I saw it, but maybe it was in the Thrive movie, that little segment we showed, where 90% of the people did not want to bail out the banks, but the banks got bailed out.
Right.
And the people didn't get bailed out. We're getting booted out. They're getting bailed out. And that's because the entire system, I'm afraid, is stacked against. Well, and see, I used to say homeowners. Now I'm saying something like the system is stacked against justice. Because, again, I'm starting to see this rampant, fraud. We've known the fraud is rampant. But now we're finding, and you've just shared with us today, something I find pretty disheartening, and that is they'll actually tell you in private that they're not interested because they've already been paid off.
Right.
So.
Well, here's what I want to follow up in regards to this, because you had asked me about how many of
Yes.
the judges in California basically have MERS. Like I mentioned to you in the email, I think every person that's listening or when it's put out there is that they need to find out in their own county, because of the list now that I've given you, that showing every county is listed in all those judges. Go to the court. I mean, now in Fresno, they are online to go to the recorder's office and put in the name, and it'll tell you what documents that have been recorded on their property. And then what I did is I went then down to the courthouse and I got their deed of trust. I only did the first 3 pages of the deed of trust, because I don't think you need all of it. Just need the MERS number and the description of the property, which is usually in the first 3 pages.
Right.
And then any assignments and substitutions and all the other things that have been recorded. And it'll cost about $20 on an average to get the amount of documents you need to show the fraud.
Right.
And, every person that is involved in their foreclosure crisis right now needs to do that, just to show the courts, okay, if we have an honest court, and be able to do a qualified written request and force them to follow the money and all the things that need to be done, and help each individual and again as a group, each county do the same thing, and like I have tried to do with the 14 mayors of Fresno County. I meet with them on a regular basis and keeping them up to date with but they haven't done anything. they're just sitting on their hands. I showed them all kinds of evidence. I showed them the Lynn Simoniak's 60 Minutes about Linda Green and the robo-signing, and they just don't do anything. I mean, there's got to be a way to force the issue, and I don't know how to do it other than to continue to educate as many people as we can and have a revolution.
Well, here's a suggestion. Here's something that somebody said to me. I haven't had a chance to pursue it. They said it to me on Tuesday when I went to Julie's presentation of her suspicious documents to the Board of Supervisors in Marin County. And a contact there said, he was suggesting this concept. So let's mull this over as a group. Give me your feedback. I'm going to try to get more feedback from that contact. He's saying that the forgery on the documents is now on the record. It's in the recorder's office. So if we were able, I mean, here's somewhat of a strategy, and Linda's on the phone. She's going to be sharing with us next briefly about filing a police report. And I know that Jack has filed a police report years ago, and he just others of you may have been filing police reports, but it turns out that the filing of the police report of whatever the crime is like the building block. It's step one, whether they like it or not. And they're not going to like it. So we have to figure out how we can make this simple for the people and do enough of it that we get some momentum, I'm thinking. So if we file the police report and then we go to the DA and request charges, because it's up to the DA to prosecute. And the DA is probably going to decline. We can already expect that. So if we get more and more and more police reports, the DA declines, I believe the people have the right to request a grand jury investigation in their county. So let's say that we were able to get 10 people in our area. I'm thinking that might be a fairly doable number for some of us. That might be difficult for a lot of people. But let's say that we could get 10 to file a police report on at least one document, one problem they've got on their foreclosure document, a forged assignment, false notarization, that kind of thing. And then they go to the DA declines. So we've got 10 police reports. Would that be enough? I'm asking. And I don't know, it could vary. Depending on how amenable our elected officials are, to start a grand jury investigation. And then with that, could the people in those various let's say we could get 3 counties to start grand jury investigations in the state, whatever state you're in. Would that be enough to force, would we get the press that we need out of that and the exposure that's needed to, if you will, embarrass, pressure our DAs and our attorney generals to actually file some criminal charges? I just don't know what else we're going to do. I mean, Gene, everybody has, he's now sharing with us, he's got acquaintances that are in the system are saying, ain't going to happen. We're not interested, ain't going to happen. And I just don't know how we're going to, we have to get some clout. We beg, we can, send our suspicious documents around, and obviously now mainstream media is starting to expose some of this and talk about this. That's very good. But what else could we do that might build some momentum? And I'm thinking this, because those forged documents are there, whether you've lost your home or not. So what if we got everybody that lost a home who now is not fighting to keep their home, they're just upset. And like you, Gene, I think you got an $800 settlement check?
$800, that's it.
And how much property did they steal from you?
Well, I had 2 homes. Were valued at over $1 million.
Well, I'm telling you, it is a no-brainer that if they could take $1 million worth of property from you and just throw you $800, like I said before, it's a fraud tax. It's just a small penalty while they make enormous amounts of money. Besides, they get the land, they get the control, and then they make you poor. So I think they get a whole lot of benefit out of it. They're breaking the back of the middle class. They're ruining the people. They're taking the property and land themselves. And right now, we can't get justice for it. So what have you suggested to those 14 mayors, just before we move on to filing police report and having Linda share with us some ideas? What did you suggest? Did the mayors even come up with any suggestions of what they could do, these 14 mayors in Fresno County?
Yeah. I suggested to them, since every single mayor and every city has a general counsel, an attorney representing them, they ought to form a coalition of all of the attorneys for each of those cities and start the process of helping their constituents. Because in Fresno County, for instance, the 14 mayors that I'm talking to are small agricultural cities.
Right.
They have the highest unemployment rates of any place. We're talking 7.5 in the U.S., but in these small cities, they're up to 40% unemployment because of the agriculture. And so, to me, it seems like they would want to jump on the bandwagon and force this issue because the banks are not paying their taxes. They're not paying the fees. Now that the snowball has started regarding county recorders filing against MERS, for the fees, I presented this to our county recorder here in Fresno, and again, he said, well, it's not my job.
Right.
And I said, what do you mean it's not your job?
Right.
He says, I can't do anything about it. There has to be other sources. And I said, well, okay, but maybe if the cities jump on board and force the issue, that's one thing. Again, there's so many different avenues, and when you hit a roadblock, you got to try another avenue. But something is going to have to really major happen that will force our government to do the right thing. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't either. We're still struggling. One of the ideas was to actually, here's the point. Let's say that we had 10 police reports on fraud on people's documents in the same city, or in the county, and that district attorney refused to file charges. And let's just suppose, for example, what I did with the attorney general with Recon Trust. I picked 18 properties of Recon Trust and identified every defect that I could discover, and whether they will allow that or not, whether they will excuse some of those defects or not, is relatively immaterial. There's enough defect in there to go around, okay? And so if, for example, we've submitted that to the Attorney General, let's just suppose they were all in one county, all Recon Trust, all forged documents, and the DA refuses to prosecute. What if those owners filed a lawsuit against the DA for violation of oath of office because he's given an oath to stand up for the people?
Well, the thing that's a great way. You've got to put them in front of the court.
Absolutely.
And expose them to the national media or the local media, whatever. The thing I did back in 2010, I went to the DA's mortgage and found robo-signing on assignments and substitutions.
Of course.
And I filed a complaint online, on her behalf. And I put it in a nice binder, and then I did also one for myself in our case. And I put it in a nice binder, and I took it down to the DA's office, and I waited for a response. I never got a response about her mortgage, but I did about my own. She said, well, we can't see any, at this time, we can't find any irregularities, but we'll keep it on file.
Yeah, and for those of you watching, you'll see that this is what they're doing. I can't see anything, as they cover up their eyes. See no evil. I can't find anything. Where is it? Where is it? And that's exactly what I think our Justice Department is doing. They don't want to see anything. They don't want to hear anything. And God forbid they say anything out against the banks. It is just truly outrageous. Thanks for sharing, Jean. I really want the viewers, any of you that can help us, let's try to put a strategy together of how we're going to build a way to force justice when the people that are in charge of justice don't want to do it. Because that's what we're fighting. We're fighting inertia, we're fighting big bucks, we're fighting being bought off, we're fighting, just the enormity of the problem. It's like no one wants to bite that because they're afraid that balloon's going to just pop all over them because it is massive. Oh boy, but thanks for sharing. And when's your next meeting with the mayors? You said you meet regularly? Oh, I guess Jean left us. Whoops. Anyway, I'll find out from Jean because I'd like, if we can develop a strategy, then really, he's such an activist. He's fought so many years. He's got such good contacts in Fresno County, which has been so devastated. But we've got to have something that will work in every county, every state in this country. Hey, Linda, you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it. Now, I've asked Linda because she has actually filed a police report. We've been discussing this, on and off for the last little bit. So, filing a police report, and you've been telling me that if we were to do that, it would have to be under white-collar crime, right?
Yes, and some depending how large the municipality where the city is, they have a special department for that.
And so assuming so if let's say that I was going to go in, I've decided I'm going to file a police report. I have some fraud on my paperwork. So what would you recommend I do? What are the steps that I would have? What do I have to do?
We recommend be prepared. You have a copy of your documents that you're questioning with the signatures highlighted, and then have multiple examples of that same person's signature that are obviously not the same as yours.
Okay.
And what you're going to also want to do is make a statement, because it has been my sad experience that when you do get them to take a statement from you, the officer or detective will only put down what he wants to in that report. So if you have your pre-written statement ready, present it to him. He can write whatever he wants then and give you a case number.
But even if he writes whatever he wants, he still has to include your written statement in the report, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So
if they don't want to, I've been with clients to police station after police station after police station, and they don't want to get involved generally with the white-collar crime in the smaller areas. And so they say, no, we don't want to do that. We don't have the detectives to investigate. So you hand them the file with everything done. And yes, they do have to accept your complaint. They do have to give it credence. So you have to be relentless in making them accept your complaint.
All right. So assuming that I have my documents, I have other documents with obviously different signatures for the same name. Okay, like Lauren Stone. Let's just take Lauren Stone. And then I have a prepared statement. And that prepared statement would do what? Explain that this was signed by...
your concern and the obvious differences, and you're concerned because evidently only one can be the real signature of the person doing this. And this bothers you because it has to do with the ownership of your property.
Right. And it's impossible to determine which is the real signature.
Right. We're not going to cast blame on this, and that's not the issue. The issue is that, here's the proof. Who's doing this? I've got to be able to identify it. And and if they say to you, you've got to take this to court, this is a court matter. No, this is a criminal matter. This end of it.
And it might.
Court. This is, you don't have to tell them, but this is supportive of your court action.
Now, wouldn't this be real helpful if you had actually in writing about the penal code? Because every state has the penal code. In California, it's 115 about submitting a forged document and recording it on the property.
As on your suspicion suspicious document.
Right.
You know, what you've included there.
Right.
We customize that to whatever, you know, for our particular
state,
whatever we're trying to fight for, the person we're trying. And you can do a couple at a time if it's, you know, within your property and you've got within your county, and you've got several examples that you can work off of. But
right.
The main thing is that, you know, you come there with all their work done, they're going to accept it more easily.
Okay, so let's say that we've got the work done, we've submitted it, we got a case number. Now, what happens to that complaint?
They are under, you can call up and find the progress of it. They are under compulsion to investigate. And if they find that, yes, there is suspicious activity, it gets forward to the Attorney General, which is our goal. Because now the Attorney General is going to, you know, your state's going to be receiving all these notices about Lauren Stone, and they're coming to her attention, and criminal charges have been filed.
Now, where's the DA, the district attorney, fit in there? Does he fit in there anywhere, or does it just go from the police straight to the AG?
No, it goes to the local DA.
The local DA.
Yeah, and they might be called assistant attorney generals, depending on the state that you live in. Here, they're not called district attorney; they're called assistant attorney generals.
Oh, okay, all right. So your county district attorney is an assistant attorney general. Well, that makes good sense. And so then that DA, let's say that he refuses to file any charges, and he gets multiple complaints on this, but he won't move. So what do you think about the idea of those people that submitted those police reports actually filing a charge against the DA for not prosecution as violating his oath of office?
I think that's a wonderful idea, and I think there has to be a central agency where, you know, like your website, where anybody who filed the complaint would register so we could monitor it, because how are you going to know who down the street or blocked over also filed it? You're not going to know unless we're all aware of it.
Unless it's already in the group that we're already working with, and then we know. But again, you're right. To track that, yeah. Okay, so we would need to have some central way to update that, which is pretty easy. I can make a web page and manually update that. It's not like there's thousands every day, unfortunately. I wish. And trust me, I would stop everything and log this if we had 1,000 every day. Are you kidding? I'd say no live stream. I'm too busy updating police reports. That would be fabulous, because I do believe it's obviously up to the people. It is just relatively discouraging to hear like what Jean shared just before you. You know, that the judges, the attorneys, they're just not interested. They've already been paid by the banks, and they're going to get paid more and more and more, and so that's it.
And this is what we've known for quite a while. It all boils down to the people aren't going to squawk because they got their pocket line somewhere, somehow.
Right. You're an insider or you're not. And it turns out that the government that controls everything, those few people, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Morgans, as we learned, and then they control the layers of government. So they have their fingers and control behind federal level in all the countries that matter. And then those folks use their position to pressure like our state levels. So like the attorney generals, they caved in and settled. And now we're finding out that settlement had some kind of error rate. Give me a break. That's allowed before the monitor can do anything. The whole thing is just rife with corruption. That is all there is to it.
What about what you and I were discussing via email this morning, answered question on the BOA settlement?
Oh, yeah, share that with us, will you, please? People ask me things, and most of the time it's very difficult for me to respond to any individual. You guys already know that. But this one guy was asking, Linda, if you can go ahead and explain what he was asking and what you found, I'd appreciate it.
Well, if Bank of America really did have to compensate, or if they had some kind of shelter for the accountability of what was done with Countrywide. Right. And on the surface, it looks like, oh, yes, they're being held accountable. They're going to have to pay back this and so forth. But then they got the modification programs, which the money came from the government, i.e. us, in actuality. And so that was in excess of what they had to pay. number one. When you look into those agreements in detail, not the consent orders, but as filed on the SEC, not with this consent order, but the previous settlement, it says that they were held harmless for any of the loans structured by Countrywide.
Okay, so here's a question. If B of A is held harmless on all of the underwriting fraud of Countrywide, who's going to be held for the underwriting fraud of Countrywide? Who's liable?
No one, because it's non-existent. And even say you're beyond that, you're not going to take that avenue. For Bank of America, you're going to go for a mod. Or any bank, the minute you sign a mod, there's a little sentence in there that you release some of the responsibility via that sentence of anything that was done previously, up till the day before you signed that. So if you filed a fraudulent documents or suspicious document report today, and tomorrow you sign a mod with them, that report means nothing.
Okay, so what I hear, this is what I heard you say, my summary, and that is the servicer can file all kinds of forged foreclosure documents to threaten to take your home and actually do it, scare you, the bejeebies out of you, and force you, extort you into agreeing to a loan mod, and as soon as you sign the loan mod, all is washed away.
All is forgiven. Been one of the main issues that so many of attorneys have said. I found only one mod agreement in San Antonio, Texas, where it wasn't included in the agreement. All of them have it there in superscript. You know, I mean, that you can't really detect it when you if you're not looking for it when you're reading the modification.
It's 0.4 tiny print, upside down, backwards, tiny print at the bottom of the sheet that you'd overlook. Oh, you got to get out your magnifying glass to say, okay, what am I signing away? Those lousy cheaters. They are just flippin' cheaters. That's all they are. It is just...
And with the consent orders, we have the right to sue. But, you know, again, now this is for something that I'm looking in the sub-agreements, servicing agreements that are filed in the SEC for particular trusts. And it has the same verbiage. The servicer is held harmless.
I don't even know what to say. I'm just like, oh my goodness.
Yes, you can sue them. Not giving up your right to sue them, but according to the law, we're going to rule against you because they're harmless.
Right. They've just covered it every which way.
It looks like we have our rights, but then when it comes to enforcing it, it's not going to happen.
A facade of rights. A facade. And just like Gene pointed out, he was just flat told, you don't have enough money for justice. Mm-hmm. You don't. It'd cost way too much, so just go away and forget about it. Just lick your wounds, leave me alone.
Unless we're J.P. Morgan Chase or Bank of America, you know, Moynihan or something like that. No, we're not going to have enough money to fight.
Right. Oh, Linda, well, thank you for your input on police reports. I'm going to pursue this more. I think I'd like to really focus this next week on if we do the local action, a police report, and make sure that gets taken. You get a case number, get more and more people to do that. Get the DA, try to pressure them for filing. If they won't, go to the grand jury. Let's see if we can't get a grand jury investigation because of these 10 or 20 or however many police reports we've been able to accumulate per county. This is one of the problems, is that we're all strewn out all over the country, and we have not yet connected with the millions of people that it's going to take, I'm afraid, to get this kind of justice. Because when you have the boots on the ground, when you have 100,000 police reports, then the power shifts, to the people. But right now, they're just going to brush us under the rug. Forget it. I mean, we're just dust to them. We're nothing, and our rights are meaningless. We lost our rights a long time ago, I'm afraid. And that's been the sort of rude awakening and rude realization, and it's been real tough, even for me, to really recognize. That's why I talk about taking off our rose-colored glasses, because this country is not what I grew up thinking it was. And now at least we've seen it clearly, and now we have a duty. We have a duty to our children and our grandchildren, and we have an opportunity to take this momentum, this issue, and use it to try to crank justice back for the people. I don't know, Linda. Do you think we have a chance?
Well, at least we keep fighting. I don't think we're all getting weary.
Yes.
And we keep discovering new little innuendos that they try, like I was discussing to you in my own case.
Yes.
They used sub-strategies. They missed the filing date on an appeal, and they lied and said they tried to contact me, and my email bounced back to them.
Right.
And I asked for proof of it. They got an extension, and then they lied on this extension. They said they tried to contact me. Well, I included the time frame. It was at 4:20 in the afternoon, and I answered at 6:05. They said I hadn't answered or gotten back to them, so therefore they want an extension all the time. They needed 3 months for their lawyers to write a reply.
See what Linda's talking about? She's in a lawsuit with the banks, and they're lying. They lie rampantly. This is now their business model. We just lie. We just make stuff up. We're going to get away with it, so it doesn't matter. So they don't tell the truth. And now let me tell you, they're doing this with others. I hear this a lot. I cannot respond a lot of the time, but people are sending me their little emails and going, I did this, they lied. I did that, they lied. The judge lets them get away with it. I hear this all the time. It just tears me apart.
At the very least, what they should do is compose an affidavit explaining what happened and asking for proof of what the other side said. Then file that, at least it's in your record.
Okay, Linda, say that once again. So anybody in a lawsuit, when they're lying, what should they do? What's your recommendation?
Make an affidavit addressing that issue, that you challenge that issue, and you want them to prove to you and to the court,
right,
present their proof of their statement or whatever they're saying. And they'll probably ignore it, but at least it's in your record for future use.
Right, very good advice. And truly, it is very difficult. It's difficult enough to win a lawsuit when both sides play fair. But the fact is, you may be thinking you're playing fair or trying to be as smart as you can. They're just lying and cheating and getting away with it. And that is very difficult to fight. So the advice is well taken. I want to just say it one more time. No, even if you're not in court, even if you're just doing your QWR letters or you're just doing your OCC complaint and they close it, you need to object right back and get it in the record, because you never know where the future is going to lead. Right?
That's right.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. We're going to pursue police reports, maybe even some lawsuits against our local elected officials, at least bad press. Get an article written. There's 10 police reports filed. The DA refuses to file these criminal charges. Try to get some newsworthy notes. Try to embarrass, public pressure our local officials into criminal charges, because until we do criminal, we're just going to be saddled and burdened with this fraud. I swear. And before we leave, I wanted to share just a couple of other things. Thanks, Linda, and we'll talk to you next week. I wanted to pull out the energy solutions on the SeriousDisclosure.com website. This is the whole point of energy solutions. And I wanted to mention this because I forgot to mention this earlier. Oops. When we were talking about the UFO and the ETVs, ET vehicles. That's what they evidently call them, ETVs. So it sounds like they really know what they are. They're no longer unidentified. But this is classic. This is classic. I had to show you because now you've got JP Morgan caught in a swirl of regulatory woes. And guess what it's about? It's not about mortgages. It's about power companies. And so here you go. FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Agency, is claiming that JP Morgan devised manipulative schemes, oh gee, where have we heard that before, that transformed money-losing power plants into powerful profit centers. And of course, they're saying, oh, that's false and misleading. But actually, the possible action comes amid showdowns with other agencies like the OCC. So I just had to point out that energy, when you really think about it, if we had free energy, first off, we'd have way more money to pay mortgages. So many people wouldn't be in foreclosure. If we had free energy, all those costs would disappear. If we could actually have, just a device connected to the house like an air conditioner that just provided all the energy for free forever, an engine that just worked forever without the energy, we could just get rid of those shackles. So I'm super excited about that. But nevertheless, of course, it isn't enough to be in charge and in control of a lot of these oil monopolies. But now they, of course, have screwed around. Swear to you, they probably securitize them. This is how they do it. And they're at least getting caught up in this swirl of regulatory woes. So we just need to keep the pressure up. We need to keep pushing and the pressure up, and we need to develop a good strategy, because court is just not working. I mean, Lorraine has had her own problems. I've been watching the people talk back and forth. I can't get involved. I don't know any answers. I don't have time to find answers. I've never gone into court myself. But here you've got one of the best pro per people and is getting slapped around just like Linda. They're just lying, cheating, stealing. And at least we've got some media links. Oh, and I wanted to do just a couple more quickie updates and then we got to go. I wanted to share with you an idea came across my desk this week. And this guy said that he was going to make a 3-minute video of the horrific effect that his fraudulent foreclosure has had on him. And he was going to send that link to his elected officials. And I said, send me a link. I'll put it on the Homeowner for Justice homepage. So what I want to do on my HOFJ homepage, I've already made a couple of changes. I've just said, let's get the AG to prosecute. And I've put my little link there about that, the live stream I did for the Recon Trust documents and that I've shared with the AG. And right now, I'm not getting any feedback from the AG prosecutors that I'd talked to just last month. So I need to focus on that and get that stirred up again and find out what's going on. And if you're not involved anymore, who is, and how do we get this going? But I want to invite every one of you, if you either yourself, your family, friend, neighbor, you see it on somebody else's live stream, or Facebook page, anything. I'd like to collect videos. 2 or 3 minutes is really a good length of any and every foreclosure fiasco, and I'm going to link them on the homepage of Homeowners for Justice. People need to see that others are suffering too. This is not just you and me. And I'm going to link some of these other news articles. And that's the other thing I'm going to do. Once this is over, I have all of the links of all of the live stream shows, and I've put them in a Word document, and I'm saving them in a PDF, an active PDF, so that every link will be active. The issue has come up. I myself try to find some of these links, and it's very difficult. And so I'm scrolling through my live stream episodes going, what day? I can't remember. What day did we talk about that? Who remembers that? And you can't Control F and find something in the live stream. So I've put all of that on a document, and now that document is going to be linked, and I will update it every week. It'll be on the homepage. It'll be on the live stream every week. So you can just pull up that document and you can search that document for any link. Like you want to see black budget? Bam, just go Control F, type in black budget. If you type in black, you're going to get William K. Black and black budget, and it'll just go down the list of links, and then the links will be live, so you can just click on them. I'm trying to make a usable encyclopedia of all of these links because they're powerful. They're powerful, and we can quickly find those to send them out to our family, friends, neighbors, and media. So that's another little action effort that I've committed to do, and I will do that today. That will be today. And then just as quick goodbye, the last update, this is June 2 to 4. Try to join the Public Banking Conference. Excellent speakers. And truly, we're shifting the paradigm. We got to stop playing their game. We got to stop giving them our money. We've got to move our money. We've got to set up our public banks, not only so that we can benefit as the public, we can benefit as a community about the creation of credit, but also so we can protect ourselves as that house of cards comes crashing down, because it's going to come crashing down. As you can see, I'm just wincing because I'm afraid it's going to hurt, even though we're struggling to come up with new ideas and new things and protect ourselves as fast as possible. Anyway, thanks so much again, guys, for joining us. And as usual, we want to bugger the bankers. And we appreciate your support and confidence and help and ideas. And we look forward to a good next week. See you then.
When I was a lass, I was proud of me class, like my father and mother before me.
They taught me to fight for my civil rights,
but it's always the same old story.
the rich reign supreme while the poor can but dream,
And the Labour or Liberal or Tory. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules. And if you're one of them, bugger you. And if you're one of them, bugger you.
The system is bent and the money's all spent. We're badgered from every direction.
The workers get taxed while the wealthy relax, with nary a moment's reflection.
when it's brass there's muck,
And they don't give an arse, 'cause they're programmed against insurrection. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules. And if you're one of them, bugger you. And if you're one of them, bugger you.
now all you good people with passion to vent, don't give up the struggle for justice. But I've done my time on the protesters' line, and these days I show my dissent.
By loitering with